Don't just live for tomorrow, or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for all you have that's in today.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to Volume 8, Chapter 7 of RWBY. And yeah, the final chapter, the final episode before the mid-season hiatus, which is actually lasting a little longer this time until the beginning of February. And I'll get to that in a bit. But first, yeah, we left off on a big moment last episode, last chapter. After everything that had been going on, all the shit that had been happening, the River of Grimm reaches Atlas. The Grimm are shot up to take down the barrier, and Salem rides Monstra right into Atlas and invades. Like, I said this last time as well, but the battle has begun. Like, I said at the end of the last volume that the war began, but this is truly getting started now. She's like actively invading. And Penny is nowhere to be seen because she's been taken down because of her systems getting rebooted by Watts. Both Cinder and the Hound are now going to be after her, as well as Winter and them. Just everything's going wrong. Everything is going bad. It is, I believe I said this last time too, but this is definitely worse than Volume 3. Volume 3 was child's play compared to this. This is legitimately the darkest, most intense, and most just frightening moment of this series. The fact that everything has gone this wrong, and then it goes even worse to where Salem is actually actively invading, and it's like, what are we going to do? How are we going to stop this? Like, the only thing that would really be able to at this point is if Oscar and Ozpin's plan worked, to use their infiltration, sort of. They were captured, but they're acting as like, oh, we're actually inside. We can actually help take Salem down from the inside. To use that plan to be able to maybe convince some of Salem's lot to turn on her, like they've been trying to do with Hazel and whatnot. And can possibly even do with maybe Emerald. It's definitely kind of going in that regard. And it's like, this, if this all works, that's going to be really interesting and kind of a devastating blow. Obviously, Salem's not going to be defeated altogether in this season, because there's another volume already set, and probably even more beyond that. I believe up to volume 10 is actually already confirmed. And you know Salem is Endgame. So it's like, how are they going to get past this and still like move on to other stuff? You got to wonder about that. Like, even if they do like get rid of some of these other characters, like get them to turn on Salem, how much will that actually change, and will that be enough to stop her, even if just for the time being? Because this almost seems like Endgame stuff itself. This is that big of a deal right now. So it's like, I'm just wondering what they're going to do. Especially since there's an entire kingdom we still haven't seen. So there's still that to take into account as well. But I'm definitely interested. And I still stand by that characters are going to die this season. I still think Ironwood's going to die. I'm definitely thinking Cinder's going to die. After that backstory we got last episode, I definitely think Cinder's going to die. It's just like there are death flags all around her right now. And it's like, I am okay with this. Just get rid of her. She's not a good character anymore. And speaking of that, like with the last reaction and everything I put up, a lot of you were like talking about how like the backstory wasn't meant to like have us sympathize with her and whatnot. It's like, that's not what I was really talking about. I still don't like her as a character, as in how she's written by Rooster Teeth. It's not about whether or not I like her in terms of her action, the character's actions or whatnot. I don't like her as a written character. I think she's poorly made, poorly written. That's what I'm talking about. And this didn't change that. This backstory didn't make her all of a sudden a good character. And yeah, there's still the aspect you could take into, oh, do I sympathize with her plights or whatnot, or do I empathize with her? It's not just, again, it's not just the fact that she's irredeemable in story. It's that I don't think she's a well-made character at all, which is really sad because the show is usually really good at characters. Like that's one of its big positives for sure. There's also the fact that Crow and Robin are still in prison, but Harriet is showing some signs of possibly turning against Ironwood. There's been some hints for sure, and I really do hope it happens. I really do hope she sees that. Yeah, things are too fucked for following him anymore. This is kind of a good portion his fault. Not entirely, mind you, but a good portion is his fault for just driving everyone apart like he has. If they had all been working together, if he had actually been doing the right thing and following Ruby's thoughts on everything, then they probably wouldn't be as in deep shit as they are right now. Let's be honest here. But I'm not going to totally get into that yet. There's also the stuff going on with Ren that hasn't been resolved, his entire like emo phase. So we'll see how that goes, if that's brought back up. Probably not in this episode, considering everything that's happening. That probably won't be brought up again until the second half. Ruby's part of the team that had split is at the Schnee mansion at the moment with Whitley, who has definitely been hinted at is going to get redeemed. So there's that as well. There's definitely been hints of that he was manipulated by Jacques as well, which yeah, we kind of figured. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this first half of the volume ends. What kind of cliffhanger are we going to leave off on? I'm really excited to find out because this series has done great with those kind of cliffhangers for the mid-season breaks and all. So I'm really, really excited. But like I said, this is the last episode until February because they are going on their mid-season hiatus, and it's going to be a longer one this time. Because of this, we are going to be reacting to the final season, season 5 of She-Ra and the Princesses of Power in that slot, in the RWBY slot. And that will begin pretty much right away. Like, there's not going to really be any break on it. It's not going to be like only for Saturdays or whatnot, like RWBY has been. It's just going to be like there's going to be 1 to 2 a week, and it's going to be set up so that it perfectly aligns with the return of RWBY. I've already figured all that out. I've told you guys about that in the video where I announced that this would be replacing RWBY. But yeah, either way. Just wanted to bring that up again to remind people that this is the final episode of RWBY until February, which really sucks, but it's going to be wonderful. Just having that wait is going to really make the return so much better. And whatever we come back on in terms of the cliffhanger is going to be so much more impactful because of it. Cliffhangers are good. People who like complain about cliffhangers, it's like, no, those are good. They're important for good storytelling for a show. Like, they're not always necessary depending on the show, but when implemented right, which most of the time I've seen, they do tend to be. They're really good. Anywho, we're going to get on with the episode, though, because, one, on the day I'm recording this, I'm pretty hungry right now. I've been recording already for a bit, and I want to just get something to eat, and I'm waiting till after I record everything. But two, also because I just really want to see what this final episode before the hiatus gives to us. As the battle begins and as Salem's forces invade Atlas. So when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow a link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episode. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So, easily one of my favorite episodes of this series. Of all 8 volumes, well, 7.5 volumes so far. Easily one of my favorite episodes, like without question. Everything about this episode was fantastic. And so much happened. Like, they really wanted to leave off with a lot, and they did. Salem is attacking Atlas. It's happening. The battle has begun, and Atlas military is trying to do what they can, but more Grimm are being created than can be taken out. It's a fruitless effort. It really is. So in response, Ironwood is planning to destroy the whale, to destroy Monstra. They're building a bomb that they're going to have Winter and her current, and her current team, which is just the Aesops. They're going to infiltrate the whale, put in the bomb, and all of that. However, they have also arrested Jean, Ren, and Yang, who volunteered to go in as a way to stop them from possibly blowing up and killing Oscar as well. They plan to go in as a test run, which Winter agrees to the disagreement of the Aesops, most notably Harriet. But on top of that, this entire scene where they're talking about it gives us one of the most exciting hype moments of this volume so far. We know that semblances can grow and evolve as time goes on, and that the people using them can even learn new things about them. We've seen that plenty with RWBY, for example. But I don't know why it just never crossed my mind that we would see Ren evolve his semblance. Ren's semblance up to this point, as we know it, has been to mask emotions, to be able to hide people's emotions in order to mask them from the Grimm, which is an exceptionally useful semblance. But it's now evolved. After the fighting that he had with Jean and Yang, after thinking it through and everything, after just realizing his mistakes and everything, he's matured in a way. He's grown as a person, which allowed him to evolve his semblance into not only just being able to mask emotions, but actually see the emotions of others around him. He notices that Harriet is lying about the mission being more important than your personal feelings, that she is doing all of this out of her own anger for losing Clover, that she did truly care for him. Which, yeah, we already knew this as viewers, but the characters thought she was just following orders still. And yeah, she kind of still was, but for her own reasons. And he reads the emotions of everyone else there and even notes that both Marrow and Winter just don't want to be a part of this anymore. That both of them have been regretting their actions and don't want to actually take part in all of this. And that's awesome. It's like we know this is the case. We've definitely known it's the case with Marrow, who's definitely the best and in least loyal, I guess you could say, ironically enough, because he's a dog. Yes, funny joke, haha. but he was one of the ones who was more on the verge of turning sides basically from the beginning, if we're being honest. So it makes perfect sense. And then Winter, we've seen her growth since last volume and stuff. And so we've seen that she, especially because of Penny, has been starting to grow as a person as well. So the fact that she's questioning it and everything now makes perfect sense. And it's honestly what I expected. Um, but she still agrees to the plan, telling them that if they don't come out within time, they will still send the bomb in. Jean agrees to it though, and yeah, that plan's going ahead. Meanwhile, Ironwood's just kind of in a panic, just trying to do whatever he can to stop the Grimm invasion. Um, and he's really upset, and I don't know if it's because he understands that this is partially his fault, or if he's just, or if he's still going to be blaming everyone else because he can't take credit for anything because he's a little bitch like that. Um, but either way, he's still he's still not trying to do what's right, all things considered, as we saw when he told the Aesops and Winter and all to keep our heroes in custody, which they didn't do. So Winter actually directly disobeyed orders there, which, hell yeah, fair. But then we also had a little bit of Oscar talking to Hazel in the ship. Oscar tells Hazel the entire story and the entire truth. He tells him the entire truth about everything, about Salem's entire goal, about why she's been doing this, why she even recruited him. And we actually find out this interesting fact that when recruiting him, she apparently let Hazel kill her, in quotes, kill her multiple times. And that after a supposed death, she just kind of comes back. So it's really interesting because I don't think we actually knew that. I think we just kind of assumed that she couldn't die at all, but that like nothing would just actually kill her. But no, we find out here that it's actually, oh, she can technically die, but she just kind of comes back right after. It's kind of like if anyone's watched Doctor Who or Torchwood, it's kind of like Captain Jack Harkness from there. Um, I mean, it's technically like dying, but he just comes right back a little bit, um, which is really interesting, and kind of puts like from that um, the flashback we saw because of Jin. It kind of puts the moment when she tries to impale herself in a different perspective. So it's more like she has an excessive healing factor that just is so excessive that it just keeps her from being able to actually die. Even if it does like take her down for a short period of time. But Oscar tells him all of this, and Hazel's not really listening. He's not really like believing it. But so Ozpin comes out and gives the password. He gives Hazel the password to the lamp and tells him, I'm not giving it to Salem, I'm giving it to you. Hopefully you'll find out the truth for yourself. And it's basically like he's trying to get Hazel to use the lamp for himself, which would probably be a death sentence for Hazel if Salem found out, to be fair. But I kind of want to see Hazel do it and find out the truth and find out that he's just been a pawn in this game the entire time. Emerald did overhear this and told Mercury, but Mercury doesn't seem to care. And Tyrion overheard the last bit of it about about Salem's plans to destroy everything. And it's like, oh yeah, that's definitely what she's planning. It's like you guys are dumb if you don't think that's what she's planning. Which did seem to take Mercury aback a bit. It admittedly did. But yeah, this is definitely going towards at least Emerald betraying Salem. And, well, Cinder, too, by approximation. But that definitely seems to be where this is heading. But the fact that it's also heading towards Hazel betraying Salem, it's like, oh, that's going to be interesting if that actually ends up working out. Meanwhile, Ruby's half of the team is arguing with May on what to do next, arguing about whether to go back down to Mantle or to save the people who are currently being attacked now in Atlas. Um, Ruby and her team are just basically like Ruby. Well, it's just Ruby, Blake, and Weiss, but still, because Nora's out at the moment. They're just basically talking about how they need to save everyone who needs it right now, and it's like right now the ones in most danger are the people in Atlas, so they want to stay there and protect them. But May is insistent on returning to Mantle instead. And we kind of get the reason why, because this episode actually in universe addresses May's transgender identity. It's the first time in the actual series that it's addressed this, and she brings it up just super subtly, super basically. It's just like she just mentions like about her family, and she was never the perfect son for them, and I made sure to tell them I'm sure as hell not their daughter. And it's like that's really sad, but it's really real too, and it shows that in her eyes she has nothing that matters to her in Atlas. Everything that matters to her, everything that's affirmed her, is in Mantle, and that's why she wants to protect Mantle more than Atlas. It's not just because Mantle is so much more in danger and disenfranchised and constantly put down by Atlas. I mean, that's part of it. But it's also because of the pains she's had with her family not accepting her for who she is. And that's really sad, and that really hit hard as a trans woman myself. So yeah, that really hit hard. But as they're continuing to argue and stuff, there's a knock at the door, and hello, it's Klein. Klein is back. God, that got me so excited when I saw him there. It's like, holy hell. I wanted to see him return, and I really did think he would in this volume. Because after we found out he was fired and everything, it's like, okay, we're going to still be in Atlas this next volume. Klein is going to return at some point, isn't he? And we did. We actually got that. And Whitley called him. And Whitley's like, I didn't call him for you. There's a girl who needs help. And Weiss just like almost breaks down at that, and she's like, I know, and that's why it means so much to me. And they hugged, and Whitley actually hugged her back, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. I said in the reaction, it's like it feels natural. It was made clear last volume that Whitley was going to end up being redeemed. Their mother's discussion with Weiss about him, as brief as it was, it made it very clear that Whitley was a victim of shock as well. And so it made it clear that Whitley was going to, at some point, be redeemed in some way. And this was such a natural, wonderful way of doing it. Seeing their just care for each other, their worry for each other, and hearing them talk and argue about it and everything, about just caring for people, it's affected him. And it allowed him to make a right decision, to do something right, and make his own decision outside of like what he's basically been raised to believe and raised to do. Like was said, it's because he didn't do this just to help Weiss that it means so much. It's because he did it for Nora. He did it to help her. He didn't do it as some sort of way to try and make up for his actions. He didn't do it like out of some kind of feeling of necessity. He did it because it was the right thing to do, because he wanted to. Because he wanted to save Nora. And that's wonderful. That's awesome. It's such good writing. I love it. But yeah, so Klein is there to help take care of things. And Then we have the very end. So there's a crash in front of the mansion, and they go out and find that it's Penny. So Penny crashed there, which is not where I expected at all her to crash down at. She's excessively injured. I don't think she's going to die, but it's a very good place to end off at because it's very concerning. It's a very concerning, frightening moment to end at, especially after something that was so heartfelt and nice. It's like you get to see, it's like, oh, this is actually going to remind us that we're in the middle of a fucking war. We just had this nice moment, and it's like, nope, gotta remind you that bad shit is happening, that things aren't okay still. And that's definitely a way to fucking do it. um, but yeah, like I said, I don't think she's gonna die. And again, if she does technically die again, we know Pietro will bring her back because the showrunners, they would not actually kill off Penny again after just bringing her back last volume. That would, like I said before, it would be a very, very bad writing decision, but also it would just be excessively cruel to the fans who adore Penny so much. It would just be a really cruel move to actually kill her again, and this time have it be for real, and for good. That's not going to happen. So again, if she does technically die, we know Pietro is going to bring her back, even at the cost of his own life, which is basically what has already been confirmed will happen if he does it again. Which is really sad, but he would do it. He would do it in a heartbeat. We know he would. So that's where this volume ends its first half. The first half is basically everything going wrong, shit going wrong, everything is terrible, panic, lots of panic. But if the events of this episode are telling us anything, it's that we're about to have our upswing, that things are about to get better, and we're about to really take back this battle. Or at least to a point where things can be stopped as they are. But that by no means implies that there's not going to be any more intense and scary situations and stuff happening. That still is very much going to happen. We're still going to have a lot of shit going down. There's still going to be a lot of things. I still think there's going to be at least one death, but possibly multiple. I don't think Ren is going to die anymore. I did think for a bit that he might die because of what they were doing with his character and Nora's and everything. I don't think Nora's going to die for sure, but not with what they're doing with her at the moment either, especially with Klein coming in to help. But yeah, with Ren unlocking this part of his semblance, this new aspect of his semblance, definitely not. I was worried for a bit there, but definitely not now. But yeah, I definitely think we're going to be on the upswing of things. We're still going to face some horrible shit. There's still going to be bad things that happen, but we're starting to move towards good again. Starting, at least. But this was a great final episode before the hiatus. Now we just got to wait until February for the next one. For the second half of this volume. But yeah, this was a great way to leave off. Had some great moments. God, I just really loved it so much. And like I said, easily one of my favorite episodes of the entire series so far. Without question. It was that good. And this entire volume's been great so far, mind you, but you know what I mean. It's like this one just really stood out. And yes, I will fully admit and I will fully acknowledge that part of that is because of May. Because it matters to me, okay? Representation of queer people in media matters to me, and especially of trans people. So it's like, yeah, that's, especially when it's done this right and this well, that's gonna make a difference for me personally. Anywho, I really enjoyed this, but I want to hear your thoughts. Tell me in the comments below what you think of episode or chapter 7 of volume 8 of RWBY, the final chapter before the mid-season hiatus. And tell me where you think this is going. So in the meantime, thank you so much for tuning in. And a reminder, we will be replacing RWBY's slot with She-Ra Season 5, effective pretty much immediately. So we'll be getting to that as the weeks go along, and then we'll be finishing that right before the next half of the season for RWBY starts. So yeah, thank you so much once again, and for now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.